A lot of discussion about the last 25 years in basketball. So, where does Joel Embiid rank among the big men since the year 2000? Welcome to the PHLY Sixers podcast, live from the Xfinity Lounge, and then presented by Ford and the good people at Rothman Orthopedics. Welcome again, Derek, Kyle, I'm Devon, and we have sitting in the producer chair today as Bree is off, Tyler Zulli hanging out with us.
Oh, these off days for Bree.
She's, getting
living the dream.
Getting those in before the basketball season starts. So Bree is off. So again, thanks everybody for hanging out with us. Good to see you all in the chat. So we do want to talk about, as we discussed that list yesterday from CBS about the top 25, the Mount Rushmore the day before, and Joel Embiid certainly in that among the Sixers, but not the top 25 players over the last 25 years. We wanted to kind of whittle it down to the big men and discuss, Kyle, where he does in fact rank among the big men. There are some names that we'll talk about along the way that you say, it's not even close. There's one particular argument as we discussed Joel Embiid that is going to be fun. And then there's certainly who's the best big man over the last 25 years, Derek. So we'll have some fun with that today. We'll get into a few other things a little bit later, some news and notes. But first, let's talk about the top big men in the NBA.
Well, first, let's eliminate the guys that we're not going to talk about today. It's probably the most important disclaimer because there will be people who come
the guys you call the time
later
guys.
on who, so there are players who are either worth consideration or would flat out be on this list if we were going and just saying it's front court guys, right? And how you define that depends person to person. But the most prominent example would be Tim Duncan, right? Mm-hmm. Tim Duncan is one of the best NBA players of all time, period. Mm-hmm. But he did spend a decent chunk of his career and in this century as a power forward, right? So Tim Duncan is an example. Anthony Davis is an example. Kevin Garnett is an example. Amari Stoudemire, Pau Gasol. Those are the five names that most come to mind of like, these are guys that in Duncan's case would be, near the top of the list. The other guys would probably be more, are they the fifth guy? Are they somewhere in that range that they're just getting pushed out of here because they time shared at the position? So before any angry Tim Duncan fans, and I think there are like 8 of those because most Tim Duncan fans are like zen as can be, just like Tim Duncan is. Before they arrive, he is not under consideration for this, with all respect to the big fundamental, because may not have been my favorite to watch, but boy, he was effective and he was great.
And the other thing is we're talking about years in the 2000s. Someone like Alonzo Mourning, he played in the 2000s. His prime was in the 90s. Cross him off the list as well.
Yep. Anybody else we miss? Anybody else? Any other names? Big men?
That we're just throwing out, you mean?
No. Just the timeshare. Power forward, center. Anybody else? You said Duncan, Garnett, Stoudemire, Bosh.
Yeah.
Bosh I didn't bring up. But Bosh is definitely one.
Bosh is in there as well.
If he did not have his health issue or it was a heart issue, right?
Yeah.
That forced him to medically retire. If not for that, I think he probably would have had that second act where he played more. He obviously had evolved into that small ball center that kind of informed where the league went at that point. But prior to that, had spent most of his career at power forward and just didn't play enough at center, I think, to get in this list. But if we were, if we wanted to expand it, if you expand it to him, then you have to include like a Draymond Green and some other guys that are not centers but play center. So we're focusing just on the big boys. There is no timeshare guy.
And just because Dirk is Just because Keith is bringing it up in the chat, Dirk, we're considering a power forward.
Yes.
Like,
Oh yeah.
by
I
far.
mean, I don't
Yes.
think
He played occasionally.
he might have played like
but not
5% of his minutes there. I know, I'd have to double check on that. So anyway, all respect to Tim Duncan and Kevin Garnett and a bunch of these other guys, but we're talking about some big boys today.
Ooh, Superhero 18 says Bynum, Andrew Bynum, better than Chris Bosh in my
maybe
opinion.
at bowling.
Yeah, maybe at being injured and not being on the floor.
Yes,
Bynum
if he
has
was
become
healthy,
super overrated.
If he was healthy, who knows what it would have looked like? He had that 1-2 great years, and then of course we know what happened, and then Philadelphia did not work out all that well. All right,
Even then, his best year,
Yeah, no,
he scored like 18 points a game. Like
Yeah.
people got to
He's
pump
not-
the brakes on.
he's
Andrew
not on
Bynum
the
a little
list.
bit. Yeah.
not close, not even close. All right, so let's start at the top with the number one, because we have no idea, what people think out there. But number one, we do know amongst us three, and even talking with Tyler, that we had a consensus of either Jokic or Shaq for the year 2000s, from 2000 to 2025. So Kyle, we came up with the consensus that it was, in fact, Shaquille O'Neal.
But it is a debate.
But it
right?
is a
Like,
debate.
Jokic
It's a
has
real
been
debate.
great enough that you have to have him in this conversation. And I think, frankly, if he's able to get another title, if he's able to, win another one or even multiple more titles after this, I think it becomes a lot cleaner and clearer for him. But I'll just lay out, I tried to put all the basic facts of like, here's how these guys rank up, right? So Shaq, 7 consecutive first team All NBA appearances, 1 MVP, and he was 1 vote away from unanimous. Allen Iverson got the only first place vote that did not go to Shaq in 99-2000. He is a 3-time finals MVP, a 4-time champion. Dwayne Wade won the finals MVP, and the only one he did not win finals MVP. His best season, 1999-2000, 29.7 points, 13.6 rebounds, 3.8 assists. Here was the crazy one for me. 3 blocks per game, which is just outrageous
It's insane.
number.
Yeah.
Half a steal a game, 57.4% from the field. Didn't make any threes, 52% from the line. And he's the guy that even now, as we sit back and look at the league, when you say, these are the most dominant players ever. When you hear most dominant, for most people, unless you're old enough to have watched Wilt, Shaq is the guy that comes to mind. Like I asked you guys a question before the show. I was like, you know how Jokic has won the MVPs? He's ahead of Joel and a lot of the standings in this type of argument. But Jokic, when he plays Joel, it's like, oh man, that guy can give him work, and like has matchups where that's the case. I asked you guys to try to think of, was there a player who really took it to Shaq, who bothered him in a similar way? And it really was it was Shaq and it was everybody else, right? He stood alone as the best guy at that position and frankly across the NBA. And unless Jokic can add some more of the team success, because I think that's important in these conversations, he can't get there for me. But Jokic, certainly, if you go through the accolades and the stats, ironclad case as well. It's more just Shaq is so damn good and was so unstoppable that it's hard to picture anybody else being number one.
And he was so good that he was drafted, to Kyle's point, he was drafted in 1992. But he was that good that it still translated to the 2000s when he started to win the championships. He got there early, of course, with Orlando and Penny and the rest of that group. But when he teamed up with Kobe and how that all played out late in the 90s, it was the 2000s when they had their three-peat. What he did with Dwayne Wade in Miami and that supporting cast that they had, and winning another one, he was a big part of it. Wasn't the MVP, finals MVP, like Kyle pointed out. But Derek, he was still doing that in the 2000s, and that's why, as early as it was in the 2000s and what Jokic has done in the latter part of of course, back here in the 2000s and the 25, Shaq was that good, and he was still that good. He was still that dominant. We got those great series against the Sacramento Kings. We saw them go against Indiana, New Jersey, and Philadelphia in the finals, but he was so good, he was still that dominant that Kyle talked
Yeah.
about, that we still can rank him number one after being drafted in
It
1992.
really is wild just thinking back on his career. I'm thinking to myself, like, he had to have won 2 or 3 MVPs and been comparable to Jokic in that regard. Him only getting one is pretty crazy to me. Now,
Mhm.
early on in his career, he's still got, Jordan going up there, Olajuwon winning MVPs, and later on you've got Tim Duncan wearing a couple, and Kevin Garnett and Allen Iverson picked up the one. So like there were a lot of really good players, but he probably should have had 2 or 3 during that span. The team success, it's a pretty big gap. And I think Jokic has it's hard and it's tough in this NBA to really build a perpetual winner. We've talked about that a lot. We're going to talk about it a lot. The CBA changes have made it so Jokic isn't going to get to have a Kobe Bryant to run alongside him for a good stretch. He's not going to get to have a Dwayne Wade to run alongside of him. How much do you factor that in there? And also, the only other thing that Jokic could really do to catch him, besides continue to put up like 30, 10, and 10 for a couple more seasons, because that's, pretty much breaking our brains, but he is more consistently on the court, more consistently available. Shaq, after his first couple years in the league, was pretty much a 55 to 65 game kind of player. But right now, I think the differentiator is that team success, is the championships. But Jokic, I do think it is a pretty different environment right now where it's tougher to win 4 or 5 championships. If Jokic gets to 2 or 3 with his individual success, with his consistency, with how frequently he is on the floor and available, I think he has a real case to make.
Yeah, and look, some of the Jokic thing is just he hasn't played as many years at the level that Shaq was at, right? Even if you shrink it to the 2000s, because again, Shaq had 7 consecutive first team All
Mm.
NBAs.
Hmm.
Jokic has 5 total, right? So just because he won 3 MVP awards, which is a huge thing, it's a huge part of the conversation. He was the best or close to the best player in the league for a long stretch here. Shaq has done it or did it for a longer period at this point, right? Jokic has runway left. Jokic has time to add on to the accolades, add to the individual awards, add to the team success and all that. And none of this is to say like, oh man, Jokic couldn't deal with Shaq or any of that. Like I would be eternally fascinated by that stylistic matchup because Devon, you talked a little bit before the show about Rick Smits is a guy who might step out and or like a Vlade Divac type guy, like the pick and pop, the jump shooters. If you can draw Shaq out a little bit, that tests him, that makes him work. And with the way the league is now and with the way Jokic can play, like last year, Jokic, I think, hit, I want to say 40 something percent of his threes, and he took almost 5 a game, right? Which is
41.7. Yep.
41% of his threes, taking almost 5 a game. Shaq just never had to play against guys like that. Now, Jokic doesn't have to play against a lot of guys who are like Shaq, right? Who are just these monstrous physical presences who are going to be able to throw a shoulder or an elbow into you, get away with a few elbows, and just move you out of the way, right? He doesn't deal with guys like that. And we've seen Joel Embiid,
the one that he does,
manhandle him a few times and
right.
put him in jeopardy on the defensive end and really punish him for his weaknesses. So that's one of those that like people who grow up on the modern NBA are like Shaq couldn't do this. People who watch Shaq like Jokic couldn't deal with him. I would love to see if we could just get Time Machine and bring that version of Shaq to play this version of Jokic and see how that would play out. I think it'd be super fascinating. But look, the thing for Jokic is he's the best offensive player in the league. And you could argue he's the best offensive player ever if you're just looking at all the splits and the assists. The playmaking is super unique. The fact that this guy took 5 threes a game and still ended up shooting almost 58% from the field last year is just such a wild thing to think about. And he's almost averaging 30 points a game. And he's still getting almost 13 rebounds. And he averaged a triple-double with 10 assists. And like when Russell Westbrook did it, because there was that huge gap, oh, he's the first one to do it since Oscar. He's got to win the MVP. Like Shea beating that guy for an MVP says a lot about the Thunder's team success and how we value two-way play. But like, even if Jokic is not all that good on defense, man, that guy is an unbelievable offensive player.
It is one of the things, because even though Shaq was only playing in the early 2000s, the game has evolved so much over the last 20 years. And, we talk a lot about how there's so much more responsibility put on centers defensively now than there was even 20 years ago back then. And I think that does two things. First of all, like those block numbers Shaq had early in his career, 2.5, 3 blocks per game. He would struggle to get that now, not because he's any worse of a rim protector.
Just
They
the
just
way
don't
they play.
challenge you as much. But also, he has to go out there and defend from 15 feet, from the foul line extended, even out to the 3-point line sometimes. And not only would he struggle to do that, but I think that would sap some of the energy that he used offensively to pursue on the offensive glass and things of that sort. So I think it would be tougher for him to put up the numbers that he did in today's game, just because I think he would have so much, to expend so much more energy defensively. But we only have what we know to go off of, and that is those incredible numbers and the team success that came along with it.
Good conversation, of course, at the top with number 1 and number 2. With those two gentlemen, do you agree? Do you disagree? Shaq at 1, Jokic at number 2. Let us know in the chat. And as we take a quick break, our first one of the day, now the conversation really begins on the other side. Where does Joel Embiid? If he's not 1 or 2, where is he? 3, 4, 5? Is he out of the top 5? We'll discuss it with all of you amongst ourselves here as well when we get back right here. Joel Embiid, where does he rank since 2000 amongst the bigs? Where does he rank? We're coming to you live from the Xfinity Lounge here on the PHLY Sixers podcast.
Guys, if you ever head on over to a friend's house ready to watch a big game, you get there and their setup is a total mess. It's lagging, it's buffering, switching between apps trying to find the game. He claimed he was a big fan, but you get there and you just feel like you have been tricked. If you call yourself a basketball fan, you gotta have Xfinity. It's the ultimate sports destination. I can find the best games and my favorite teams all in one place. And the way you watch, next level. I've got all the action right in my living room, plus Xfinity's best picture and sound with enhanced 4K. So clear, it feels like I'm in the arena. Sometimes I've got 4 games going on once, because of course we do, we're basketball nerds. On top of that, you get real-time notifications and live stats right on my TV. It's the best seat in the house every time. Next game day, make sure that big fan isn't a big fail. Learn more at Xfinity.com. Xfinity, imagine that. Restrictions apply. Multi-view requires Xfinity 4K capable TV box.
And of course, we got to tell you about our wonderful friends from Ford, right? Like the Ford Explorer, America's all-time best-selling SUV that brings a legacy of family trust and performance. You can get up to 3-row seating for up to 7 passengers. Great for families and road trips. It's available in rear-wheel drive or intelligent 4-wheel drive for better traction and control. 3 different powertrains you can choose from, including a hybrid for better fuel economy. Also has an available 3.0-liter EcoBoost V6 that can kick it up to 400 horsepower. The hybrid model offers up to 500 miles of driving range, which is a great balance of power and economy. Maybe you don't need to drive 500 miles, right? Maybe you just need something that's got a lot of the nice bells and whistles on the inside, something that's comfortable, something that you can haul, whether it's your kids, your friends, some other family, some hangers on, whatever it might be, or you just got to throw a lot of stuff in the back. You got up to 87.8 cubic feet of cargo space with the rear seats folded down. The rear seat passengers also get captain's chairs as an option for extra comfort and accessibility. So whether you're driving down to the beach, going up to the mountains, driving around the city, whatever you might be doing, you will be taken care of in the Ford Explorer, which also comes, by the way, with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, standard across all trims. It's built for families, but ready for adventure. A true do-it-all SUV. For more information, visit your local Ford store.
Welcome back to the PHLY Sixers podcast here on a Thursday as we talk about the best centers, the best bigs since 2000. And right now, we ask, where does Joel Embiid rank? So this is where it gets tricky, everybody, because who's in this mixing pot of centers that we have here that will even be in the conversation with Joel Embiid? We've seen some names already in the chat. And Derek, one of them, of course, is former Sixer, going into the Hall of Fame. What, next week, I think it is? Going into the Hall of Fame next week. Deservingly so,
The
by
Candy
the way.
King himself.
Yes, deservingly so, by the way. We used to have some big arguments on the radio about this. He's not a Hall of Famer. Stop it, everybody. Just because he's a different cat doesn't mean he's not a Hall of Famer.
Well, also, I think when you're having that argument, it's probably when he came to the Sixers, and he was pretty late in his career at that point.
The resume was already done. He was a Hall of Famer by that point. So,
Yep.
Dwight Howard, Joel Embiid. Is there anybody else that belongs in this mixing pot
No.
at 3-4? All right, so
Not based on our parameters, right? If
Right.
this was if we were including maybe like, I think Anthony Davis is clearly below those two guys for me. Certainly, if we were including the Garnetts and Duncans of the
Yeah,
world, then
then-
it's a
Right.
much different conversation. But without those, it's these two. It's a battle royale between the former teammates.
It would have been fun to see where Duncan would end up with Shaq and with Jokic. That would have been a fun debate.
I'm still putting Duncan above Jokic.
I might put Duncan above Shaq. I'm a real big Timmy D fan, but that's not the debate we're having. And I'd have to think about it a little bit more. No, I do think this is a Dwight versus Embiid for the 3-4 spots. Dwight, won Defensive Player of the Year 3 years in a row. He was an 8-time All-Star. He was I think his highest MVP was runner-up.
Second. Yeah.
Right. But he was top 5 4 times. And, he won one title with the Lakers, but he then got the championship the other time with Orlando.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people are going to give him the edge. And I think certainly nationally would probably give him the edge over Embiid because of the team's success. And look, he was, even though you don't think of him as an offensive player, he was really the engine for a lot of those Orlando teams. His ability to attract attention inside and free up his shooters on the perimeter. They were a little bit of a forward-looking team at that point, I would say. You were running a lot of power forwards next to him who could shoot, and I think that played well to his skill sets. I do think he sort of lucked out in that he was playing in the late aughts and early 2010s where, I don't think we were necessarily fully evolved on how we would develop or defend post-ups. I think they probably sent a little too much attention his way, and that probably prevented him from having to take some of the higher degree of difficulty shots and opened up a lot of shots for his teammates. So I think that ended up playing to his strengths and hiding some of his weaknesses. I think this is a real debate. I value two-way play a lot, and I think Embiid clears Dwight by a long way offensively.
Yes.
Defensively, Dwight, I think, was obviously better, more consistent, more reliable. And quite frankly, he was just he was on the floor every night.
Yeah.
He was playing 82 games a year early on in his career consistently.
I think he played 82 games 4 out of the first 5 years of his career. Which
and
is
even
crazy
late in
to
his
think
career,
about.
he was playing in the 70s pretty regularly. He was available. So I think you could certainly make a case that Dwight had a better career, or at least a more consistent career. I just got to go by what I'm watching, and I think Embiid was a better all-around player and easier to build around.
Yeah, this kind of circles back to an age-old debate. It's better versus greater, right? I think you could argue Dwight is greater because if you just take the one run to the finals with Orlando, it's something that Joel has not been able to do. It's something that people look at and they say, man, Dwight Howard went through peak LeBron James in the Eastern Conference as the best player on the team and was able to get it done. And then they're in the finals against Kobe and Powell. And that is not easy to do, right? And if you're measuring stars at the highest level in the playoffs, that gives him a little bit of a leg up. You talk about the early career consistency, I think is a completely fair point, right? You just knew Dwight was going to be there each and every night, the same defense, the same play around the rim. So that's throwing down lobs, that's offensive rebounds, it's blocking shots and also clearing the glass on the defensive end.
And then getting out in the open floor
And
with them.
right, running with those guys. But a lot of this, to me, ultimately comes down to things that were not necessarily in either of these guys' control. And that's how they were built and the consistency with which there was a vision around them, right? Orlando was a lot more forward thinking with how they built that team. They built the team specifically around Dwight. It was not like, hey, we have this other number 1 overall pick who
can't shoot,
can't shoot. And, you can make it work because he's very talented. But we have to find guys that work with both Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid. And it was not a situation where the front office is turning over every year and a half, 2 years, because the guy who drafted you is under fire from the league. And then there's a nepotism hire. And then there's a shadow cabal running the team. And then you finally have at least some consistency in the front office. But at that point, you're so far down the road that you're trying to undo mistakes that other people made rather than working from a clean slate and building from there, right? So there are issues that Joel dealt with that Dwight just simply didn't have to in Orlando. I think, though, I would ultimately lean slightly toward Dwight even though I think Joel is a better basketball player, is a more skilled basketball player, just because like when you're talking about levels of greatness, right? Sometimes you just got to be on the floor, right? I don't, in a better player competition, I'm taking Joel any day. Dwight had no real offensive bag, right? He goes into the post, he's got a few jump hooks, maybe a few drop steps, but if you move him out to like the free throw line, he's got nothing, right? And if you're turning it into a one-on-one competition, Joel would smoke him. And to Derek's point, I think off or defensively, peak Joel is much closer to peak Dwight than peak Dwight on offense was to Joel. Like a lot closer in that respect. Joel had multiple top 5 defensive player of the year finishes, was an all defense guy several different times. So clearly has a resume on that end of the floor. But I think by like the slightest of margins, I might lean Dwight just because I do value the playoff stuff. I do value the team success. And even if some of it is about the management and the roster construction and all that, when you're the number one guy on the team, it falls on your shoulders that you've never gotten out of the second round.
So I think I lean Dwight Howard here too. And because with the limitations that you just talked about, where Joel clears him on the offensive end and is close with the defensive stuff between those two, the fact that he was so limited and still as great as he was because of his defense and what he was willing to do on offense. And yes, they put the right team around him where the lob threat was there with he and Jameer Nelson. The fact that the shooters were around him.
I love how the first thing you go to is lobs. I love it. Just
it was
stick to the bit.
Easy. It was a part of the offense.
No, I know. It's such a Devon way to go. That's what I'm saying. I love it.
It was so crazy that it was part of the offense where you expected that every night that it was going to happen once or twice within the flow of what they did. And even, when some guys were out, he was always available. And he was a terror on defense. Kyle, when you talk about Shaq blocking 3 shots a game, it seemed like Dwight had blocked 3 shots a game. That's how much of a rim protector
he was. Definitely close some years, like 2.8, 2.7. Like he's definitely up there.
He was available. And that's the thing. So even with the limitations on the offensive end of what he couldn't do, he still had big numbers because of who he was with. He was always engaged. He always did the stuff. And look, he's just like any other player where they said, I want to be more involved in the offense. No, you don't, because that's where you get in trouble. But that's what face of the franchise is. That's what they do. That's what they ask for. But even still, the things that we have said about Embiid, get your team over the hump. He has not. Yes, he has had things that got in the way with some teammates and Simmons and stuff. We talk about Game 7 with the Hawks, and we know about what took place with Game 6 against the Celtics, and then Game 7 eventually in 23, the shot in 19. All of those things. Dwight Howard got there, and he beat the best guy to get there in LeBron James, where everyone was like, Orlando can't beat Cleveland with LeBron James. He keeps getting to the NBA Finals. It's not going to happen. He beat the best guy, and then he put up a fight in the finals as well when he got there. And for him to have the longevity, all of those defensive accolades, the All-NBAs, the All-Stars, the MVP conversation too, where we were discussing it that when Rose won, it was really LeBron, Howard, and Rose in that MVP conversation. And there was an argument for each one of them to be the MVP for that season. So if we look at it and Embiid with the injuries, it comes into play because while Dwight got banged up a few times, it was more later in his career where that stuff happened for him, for us to look at him in this conversation. But for that, I'm leaning Dwight there, and I think he's number 3 in this conversation.
No, I mean, look, Orlando Dwight had 2 very, very good playoff runs. They had the conference finals in 07-08, and then they had the NBA finals in 08-09. Those are if you're just going on playoff resume, like they don't even come close to comparing. That's not counting what he did with the Lakers when he was a role player and won a championship and whatnot. But
that conference finals is even forgotten.
Yeah,
it's just Orlando, so it's kind of forgotten.
It is obviously part of Joel's legacy is going to be the injuries, and the injuries impacted playoff success a lot more than lack of playoff success a lot more than they influenced his regular season totals and whatnot until later on in the career. Part of it, to Kyle's point, like Dwight wasn't putting up with GMs running burner accounts, wanting to
So
slap
like
him with the ladder.
actively sabotaging him or disparaging him behind the scenes. Yeah.
And multiple point guards who couldn't shoot outside of 3 feet. Like, I would love to see Joel with multiple years with JJ Redick and Turkoglu and, Jameer Nelson and Rashard Lewis. Like, these were players that fit Dwight to a T.
Fun team.
And you give them a lot of credit because, they were like number 1 in the league in 3-point shooting for multiple years in a row. Like, they were definitely, I don't even know if they were like intentionally ahead of the curve. Sort of like Mike D'Antoni's like, if I would actually know the numbers behind it, we would have shot quicker than 7 seconds. Like, it's just the way I wanted to play. Like, it wasn't an analytics thing. I don't know if they were intentionally like early adopters of analytics or if it just happened to be that way because they were trying to play off of their big man. But for the Sixers to go in almost a complete inverse direction when you have a generational post player and big man, it's going to frustrate me for the rest of my life. But you cannot change history. So I understand, given the playoff success and the consistency, especially the first 5 or 6 or 7 years of Dwight's career, I think it's a real strong argument. Like I said, I think if Embiid, you can't change injury luck, but if he had just a little bit of injury luck and a little more competence around him, in my heart, I think he's a better player, but Dwight certainly has a better track record.
Yeah, and I think better versus greater matters because better just comes down to, like, look, I think this guy, if he's in the right situation, if he got the right bill of health and this happened, we can go through that with all kinds of players throughout NBA history, right? What if Tracy McGrady on those Magic teams had Grant Hill healthy instead of Grant Hill body breaking down? And then, there were series that Tracy McGrady lost with the Magic, for example, where he's putting up like 33 points a game, right? And now he's remembered as, Tracy McGrady can never win in the playoffs. And some of that is just not fair, right? Some of that is like, he didn't have enough help. And that's a real thing.
It is part of our job to try to like take in all of the extenuating circumstances and the details. We're not here just to be stenographers.
Yeah. But the greater part is like, here's what actually happened, right? When these guys had opportunities, here's what happened. And when Joel has had opportunities, and like, we can't go through every single year and be like, it was everybody else's fault, right? That's where I've always run up against people who are like the strongest defenders of Joel and said, look, 22-23, that's a really good team. That's a 54-win team. You have game 6 at home. You had James Harden win you 2 games of that series. That's the one you gotta win.
Gotta win that, man.
You gotta win the Hawks series. The Ben Simmons stuff aside, you have to beat that team. You have to win that series. There are a couple that you just needed to come through in a more meaningful way than you did. I don't care if that means 5 more points. I don't care if it means 2 or 3 less turnovers. There are just certain moments in your career where you have to pull something from nothing or just get the result that is expected of you going into that series. And there are plenty of reasonable excuses for why Joel has not cleared that bar. But once you're being compared against other Hall of Fame type players, multiple time first team All NBA, defensive player of the year type guys, like, the results do matter at some point. So if you're asking me who I would take as a player, it's Joel. If you're asking me who's got the better resume, the greater resume, it's unfortunately Dwight, because Joel just doesn't have the feather in his cap for team success in the playoffs.
One other benefit that Dwight had, the Magic got rid of Doc a couple years before he got there. Joel had to have Doc in the middle of his career.
It's funny. I was thinking about when you bring up Tracy McGrady, the what was it? The Pistons series with Orlando where he came out. I think they were up 3-1.
They were, because that was a Doc Rivers special.
And he said it finally feels good as he's sitting at the podium to win a first round matchup.
It's like you never ever. It's never over until it's over. It's like, what's the Kobe Bryant? Job's not finished.
Yeah.
I may disagree with Kobe on several fronts, but he's right on that one. Job's not done until it's done.
A lot of first round losses for Tracy McGrady. That one always stands out because it's like, dude, why'd you say that? Why'd you say that out loud?
There's just no upside to it. It's like, what are you doing, man?
Against the Pistons? You don't say that. No. So that was that. All right, folks, what do you think? Joel 4, Dwight Howard 3. Are we right? Are we wrong? Where do we go from here with number 5? And the candidates are there.
I wish I knew.
Should the candidates maybe be above Joel at number 4 and 5? Are we talking about those? Let's talk about it on the other side as we hang out with you on this Thursday from the Xfinity Lounge. It's the PHLY Sixers podcast. And folks, I got to tell you about Parks Casino and the Excite Center. Been there many of time. And it's one of the many things that I love about my casino of choice, the Parks Casino, of course, is the Excite Center. It's very easy to get to. Parks Casino is Pennsylvania's #1 casino and is close to Philadelphia, located in Bensalem. Take Street Road, exit off of I-95 and the PA Turnpike. Boom, it's like a 2-3 minute ride and you're right there. The Excite Center is the state-of-the-art entertainment venue located inside Parks Casino, named one of the best places to see the country's best comedians and music headliners in the area. And I did, in fact, see a comedian. I went and checked out Deion Cole when he was in town, and it was a great show, great atmosphere, great environment, got something to eat there afterwards. It's one of the best times that you can have, of course, in the area. Again, visit parkscasino.com to buy tickets for all your shows, pregame the shows at their amazing beer garden, which is just lit up nicely. The seating area, the arrangement is perfect. Play some pop culture slots, maybe roulette, cards, and other table games you love while you wait. That's my experience. Now go have yours. Go get yours. Go enjoy yourself at Parks Casino. Once again, parkscasino.com to buy tickets for whatever event you want to go see. Parks Casino, this is how you win. You must be 21 and over. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Also, want to tell you about things going on here at PHLY, like come on, guys, it's the intro, the $36 intro special for the Diehard membership, limited time, $36 for the football club special. You get the new Bird Gang Football Club t-shirt that you see right there on the screen. You get that as a free t-shirt when you sign up for the $36 special. That's $3 a month, as we are just approaching now 1 week away from the kickoff of your football team, the Philadelphia Eagles, defending their Super Bowl championship from a season ago. And as you do that, you want to make sure you're in the building with your t-shirt on. So $36, go sign up. You get all the great coverage from E.J. Smith, from Bo Wolf, from Fran Duffy and Les Bowen on the Eagles side, Derek Bott and Kyle Newbeck on the Sixers writing content side, and you also get Charlie O'Connor on the Flyers. And with the Phillies, I know, everybody. It's okay. It'll be all right, Derek. It's okay. It's not a big deal. They got swept by the Mets. It's not beautiful.
Tell me what I should worry about.
All
I'll
right,
worry about whatever I want to worry about.
Well, you can hear him about it. You can hear Tyler on the PHLY Philly show. And you can also read Jim Salisbury at allphly.com to get the latest as we approach October and the baseball run for the postseason. That's allphly.com, $36 special, football club intro offer. Go ahead, get in there. And there are other shirts that are available, everybody. Not just that one football club shirt. Tyler, let's show them the other two that are also there as a grouping. It's that football club shirt in green. Then there's a black one it says PHLY, and I think what does it say? PHLY Birds. And then there's also a gray one that's also available that you can see there on our website. And once you go down to the merchandise and the drop button, you'll check out all the great t-shirts that are available for you there at allphly, or store.allcitynetwork.com to check out the t-shirts that are available to you. All right, go check it out, allphly.com. Get a good look at them there. All right, let's get to number 5, because we had a number of names here.
Do we need to? Because I don't really want to make a decision on this one, I don't think.
All right, so here are some of the names that we brought up pre-show. And you tell us if we missed anybody. And remember, Kyle made it clear at the very top. No Tim Duncan, Kevin Garnett, Amari Stoudemire, Chris Bosh, Anthony Davis. None of those names are eligible here. And Tyler throws the shirt up there in the bottom part of the corner. So go again, check it out. PHLY football with the bird there at the bottom, the black one. I love that one as well. So none of those guys that are power forwards but can also play the 5 in their era of basketball. They are out. So here are some of the names that we also came up with. Ben Wallace, Rudy Gobert. Shaking your head?
Well, we're going to have a conversation.
DeMarcus Cousins. And I threw in, I think you mentioned Tyson Chandler as a name while we were sitting out there.
But no. Yao Ming is the other guy. Derek has brought him up.
Derek brought up. And I also just threw Marc Gasol in there because of what Marc Gasol did for his career in both Memphis and Toronto and what he meant So
Yeah, I do think Powell. I know we were striking out anyone who was a part time, but I think especially later in his career, he played so much.
He
I would
did.
kind of consider him,
he did.
but I understand if we're throwing out like Duncan, we can't include the other Gasol too.
All right. So where do we go? You go Yao Ming. You go
I
Ben
would
Wallace.
go Yao. I would go Yao Ming, especially like I value two-way players a lot, and I also generally value peak more than longevity, which we talked about yesterday. And obviously, Yao had the devastating foot injuries, like literally just couldn't come back from it. We all remember that from the concerns we had with Joel Embiid. But when he was, and look, he was never quite the rebounder you expect him to be. He's never quite the defensive player I think you expect him to be. He was, it felt like still kind of scratching the surface of his potential, even though he was putting up, 25 and 9, 25 and 10 on a pretty regular basis. But I do think Yao had such two-way potential, and the other guys on this list are so limited offensively that I do think it would be easier to build a team around. I think he was probably, the one I would go here. But again, we're going to start bringing up accolades and Ben Wallace with the Defensive Player of the Years and the title and all that stuff. I would go Yao, though.
I really struggle with Yao. And I can't sit here and be like, I'd give Joel demerits for the health stuff. And I'd be like, but on the other hand, got to throw Yao Ming in here, despite the fact that his best season is probably a season where he played 48 total games, right? Like, he's just a very tricky historical case. If you're talking about the talent and the on-court production and what could have been and all that, I get it. But I don't know that he played enough. The issue, though, is that if you rule him out, then you're looking at the rest of these guys. And I loved Ben Wallace, right? Absolutely loved him. You want to talk about one of the only guys who gave Shaq any problems in a notable playoff series. Ben Wallace in 04 when they won.
Yep.
Didn't stop him, but at least slowed him down enough to give them a chance, although really Kobe shot them out of that
To
series.
your earlier question of who gave Shaq problems, Yao Ming gave him problems.
Give him some.
But who gave him more than some? Really?
No, I know.
So Yao Ming gave him some
nobody
problems,
stops him.
all things considered.
I mostly was just trying to say that Kobe actually shot them out of that series, but continue. But on the other hand, with Ben Wallace, you want to talk about bad offensive players.
No, he's a career 6-point per game scorer.
We're not talking about limited. We're talking about bad, right? Stone hands. You were honestly lucky if he finished a lob attempt. He couldn't shoot free throws, so it wasn't even like he can be a release valve at times. So he's someone that was a massive liability at times on that end of the floor. And that's where you then have to go, well, Rudy Gobert has basically the same accolades individually and is a better offensive player.
Do it,
but
Kyle,
just on principle, I will not put Rudy Gobert in that fifth spot. I think if I were being intellectually consistent and I cared about, the fairness of the arguments being made, I would have to put Gobert there, but I refuse to do it. So give me Ben Wallace. I can't do it. I don't like Rudy Gobert as a matter of principle, and I will not put him in the top 5 of any list. Except for the guys who have won the most defensive player of the year list.
I don't blame you for that.
Cannot do it.
To go back to the Yao Ming thing, first, he only played 7 years in the NBA. And we know injury related. He played 7 years in the NBA, and Kyle brought up one of his best years.
An all-star in 100% of his seasons?
Yes, he was.
That's a fan vote.
Yes, he was.
All NBA I care about. And Yao did, I believe, make 5 all NBA teams, which that matters. Yes. Yao Ming making an all-star team is the most meaningless thing possible. I said to you guys before the game, he was an all-star his rookie year and didn't win rookie of the year because the vote from China came in and was like, he's in.
Have at it.
Gotta see Yao. Which is not to say he wasn't a good rookie. It's just,
he would have been first team
the all-star vote for him is heavily skewed.
Inflated. So 7 years in the league for him. And I was looking at his rebounding, and he only averaged rebounding double digits twice.
Yeah, he's not a good rebounder.
Yeah, in his rebounding years. He was 9.9 in the last year with Houston in 08-09 at, again, 9.9 with 19.7 rebounds. He was, of course, voted. He had MVP votes. He was all-star and second team all NBA that year. But I mean, we talk about Joel not getting enough rebounds at times. This dude is huge, and he's not getting
He's
enough
7'6",
rebounds.
right?
Not getting enough rebounds as a big man. So the injuries, of course, strike him. The rebounds, I look at that as well. He was fun to watch too because he was different. He was so unique, and he was good because when we would see other big George Mirasan 7'7", Sean Bradley 7'6", we had experienced all of that where there was some funky things about these players that were that height, that size, but were not as skilled as he was. And that certainly puts him in the conversation where Derek brings him up and others are saying, Yao clearly as the number 5. But I do lean Ben Wallace because
that's my guy right there.
As offensively challenged as he was, you look at what he did from the last year in Orlando with 81 games played. And of course, we know he couldn't score, but the rebounds for
it is funny to just kind of like yada yada. He can't score at all.
He can't score, but man, does he rebound, and man, does he defend the rim, and man, does he go toe to toe with Shaq as best as you possibly can.
He got MVP
in the
votes,
NBA Finals,
averaging under 7 points a game.
That's how
good defensively he was.
That's how good he was, man. So when you look at the Detroit years for the 9 years that he was there, he had 655 games played. He started 597, but he was 6.6 for the points. Rebounds, 11.1. Block
he had like
shots,
half as many blocks as points.
You talked about the
he would grab 4 offensive rebounds and score 7 points.
2.3 because he would kick it out. He was smart. He wasn't like Paul Reed.
He was smart and limited. He was both.
So he knew his limitations. But 2.3 blocks per game in that time with the Pistons. Got to the finals twice. He was really, really good with that Detroit team. Ben Wallace was phenomenal for that stretch, man. And when they talked about him Hall of Famer, they're like, yeah, he's going to go in first ballot Hall of Famer. I'm like, I guess I can't argue with it. He was really, really good helping turning things around where Chauncey Billups was not supposed to be a franchise player. Rip Hamilton was on his second team. Rasheed Wallace was on his third team because he wasn't supposed to. And they all came together, and it came together in the right way. And, man, he was a big, big part of turning that whole thing around and gave Shaq the business as best as you can in the finals and stopped that. And I know you can go the Kobe route where it's like it wasn't there anymore. But
shot him out of that series, and I will stand on that.
Guess what?
He was terrible in that.
Guess
finals.
who took advantage of it? You strike when it's hot, man, and you get there. And Ben Wallace was good, man. So I put Ben Wallace 5. I know you can go Yao Ming, Rudy Gobert. Maybe even throw in some other names again like we talked about. But those are the real 3, and I lean Wallace in that one. I do. I do lean Ben Wallace.
Yeah. Again, I think intellectually it's probably Gobert. I don't like him, and I won't put him there.
My actual order of those 3 would be Yao, Gobert, Ben Wallace. But I enjoyed watching Ben way more than Gobert, for sure.
Even with the limitations.
Sure.
Yeah. Even with the limitations, man. It was fun.
Last 3 games of Pistons Lakers, Kobe Bryant 4 for 13, 8 for 25, and 7 for 21 to close out that series. That's a yikes
great.
for me, dog.
It wasn't great. I enjoyed watching them win.
The Pistons,
watching,
oh yeah, Coatesville zone, Rip Hamilton.
That was cool, and Rasheed, of course, being from here, it was fun to see that play out. So there you go. Those are our top 5. Talking through it with all of you on the show. Ben Wallace 5. Joel Embiid 4, Dwight Howard 3, Jokic 2, and Shaq number 1 among the top 5.
Ben Wallace just cooler is the thing
with the fro,
and the headband.
He had
and when he did score like 4 times a game, boy, did it look awesome. He was like ripping the rim down when he could actually catch the ball.
The block shots, sending it to the seats, Tony Roten style. Getting into the 7th row.
He had a 2nd place finish to then Ron Artest in Defensive Player of the Year voting in 03-04. That was the only thing stopping him from 5 consecutive Defensive Player of the Year awards.
Unbelievable.
Like that Pistons team, the fact that they were able to win a title with that offense is remarkable. They were going out there and winning like 70 to 65 in playoff games. Not even like, oh, it's a regular season just bloodbath. It's
That's
like
why when
they're playing elite teams.
That's why when people complain about like 3-pointers now or the game
Oh.
now, it's like go watch games from that era, man. It was tough.
It was
real tough.
brutal.
And they
absolutely brutal.
Teams have to play us Pistons basketball. You had to play us.
They definitely played Pistons
Yes,
basketball.
they did. Mr. Sandman, bring me a dream in the super chat. Marc Gasol sent Embiid home weeping like a baby without a pacifier. Straight up exposed him. Well,
I think Kawhi Leonard is who sent Joel home.
I mean, Mark did defend Joel well. I think he had that scoreless game against the Raptors and Marc Gasol, right? I think
that wasn't in the playoffs, though.
No,
right?
that was a regular.
That was a regular
season
season game. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And we brought Mr. Sandman. We brought up Marc Gasol just in honorable mention conversation, but he's just not good enough. Not enough to take that number 5 spot or jump up to 4 or 3.
But very good
player.
Very good player.
For being honest, I didn't rank like 8 through 15 or 8 through 10.
We thought about 5. And I think those were the 7 guys that I think are in consideration.
He would absolutely be in that next tier, though.
He's a Hall of Famer.
I'm looking at, okay, what do you think the final score was in Detroit versus Indiana to close out the 04 conference finals? This is the game that sent them to the finals against the Lakers.
Final score?
Final score.
80-75.
You way outshot it.
Well, I was going to say 77-72.
69-65. Pistons win.
Wow.
See, now
69
and people
65.
will look at that and be like, oh, they don't play defense anymore. Well, first of all, obviously the Pistons were a great defensive team. But no, like the league is a lot more skilled. The skill, and obviously there's all kind of rule changes and whatnot, but the skill level has increased.
The Pistons had 8 bench points.
Wow.
The Pacers had, they actually got a decent amount off their bench. Yeah, Jamal Tinsley with a goose egg in 3.5 minutes in that game.
Come on, Maul.
That's disgusting.
That's a tough one. 69-65 in the Eastern Conference.
Underrated
Finals.
point guard.
You imagine turning on like it's Halliburton versus Cleveland, Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland, and neither team scrapes over 70 points. What a wild concept.
That's nasty stuff. Tyler says that in that season, 03-04, when they won the championship, 26 games regular season where they scored less than 85 points that season.
If you guys want a little bit more.
But what's the record is the more important thing.
36 times they gave up less than 85. So obviously they weren't scoring a lot, but 36 times they gave up less than 85.
Playing Pistons basketball.
11 games they gave up less than 70.
Man.
The Pacers did not crack. The Pacers cracked 80 points in that series one time in 6 games. One time. They scored 78, 67, 78, 83, 65, 65 in 6 games. Heinous stuff. And that was a good Pacers team. That was the team was that the next year that was Malice in the Palace, right? That was 04-05. They're coming off of that defeat, and that was why that game had a lot of juice. It was like, all right, we're coming back, and we're letting them know we're here. Well, you let people know you were there, all right.
Just want to personally thank the math nerds who realized that 3 points are worth more than 2 points, and then the coaches who prioritized shooting and skill development. Thank you so much.
They should have paid attention to Mike D'Antoni around that time.
That is a great reminder of just like not everything that's nostalgic was good.
No.
You just remember it fondly because you were younger.
Yes.
It was fun then, though. At the time, it was fun. All right, we had one thing that we did want to quickly go through. Our friend Jake Fisher from Bleacher Report, and of course, the Mark Stein Substack, talking about some things around the NBA as we get closer to training camp in the end of August. Speaking about the remaining free agents, Malik Beasley, one of them as well. But he also talked about, Kyle, the paying attention to that December period in the middle of the month where trades start to happen.
The December 15th.
Yes.
Everyone loves that date, and then nothing happens on December 15th. It's
right. So
trades 52% of people are now eligible to be traded. Okay, but none of them will be.
So he also talked about one name in particular, Haywood Highsmith, who was recently traded from the Miami Heat to the Brooklyn Nets, but he also talked about just in general how the 76ers could be one of those teams to watch out for. As he mentioned, a lot of teams keeping open that final roster spot in the NBA for some flexibility around that time.
Yeah. So the basic extent of it, and I think Derek has mentioned this at times, was that Highsmith is a guy that if they do not use their mid-level, that they could potentially keep that roster spot open and just absorb Highsmith's contract into the mid-level in a trade if that was something they wanted to do at the deadline. And so when we talk about why they would, the flexibility argument, we always put air quotes around that because a lot of it centers around, it leaves them the ability to duck the luxury tax at the trade deadline.
You can always waive a guy. They don't want to get hit with that salary towards their luxury tax.
One of the tangible reasons to not use their taxpayer mid-level is they could make a Haywood Highsmith trade. He's got a small enough salary that you could just simply bring him into the roster, send out a pick, and that can happen, right?
Yep.
So Brooklyn is certainly not going to compete this year. They're not interested in competing. They have their 17-point guard roster and Haywood Highsmith, and my guess is they'll shop him around. If the Sixers are cooking early this season, I wouldn't be surprised if they, looked at a guy like that, but we are a long way away from even knowing what this team will look like. But just something to, keep in mind for on the horizon.
And that thing with the absorbing a player into your exception, into your mid-level exception specifically, that is a new thing. Like if you haven't been paying attention to the CBA over the last couple of years, first of all, I'm jealous. But second of all, because the CBA is a gosh darn disaster. But second of all, this did come up in the new CBA. Before that, you could not use a mid-level exception to acquire a player in a trade. It was only for signings. Now they've changed it so you can acquire somebody into it. It does then hard cap you like it would if you use it on a contract. But that is new.
And Ramid says, after Caleb Martin, I don't want no more Heat role players. And a laughing emoji.
Josh Richardson.
Ed Wright says, no Miami freaks. All they do is fail elsewhere. And remember, PJ Tucker also
once they get off
came from Miami.
The Heat culture HGH program. I'm just joking. I'm just joking, to be clear. But once they leave Miami, everything falls apart. So who knows?
Yeah.
We'll see how Duncan Robinson does in Detroit.
Exactly.
That might be a classic case of Heat culture.
He was losing it while still in Heat culture. So we'll see with that. Mr. Sandman with a late super chat.
He's really on the Marcus Sol train today.
No, he's on the anti-Joel Embiid train is what he's on.
I think Nick Nurse secretly doesn't respect Embiid the way he let old man Marc Gasol beat him up in the playoffs. Didn't even have to double team him. That's from Mr. Sandman. Bring me a dream. Thank you for the super chats. We appreciate it. And,
well, that was an explicit part of why they traded for Marc Gasol, was
that's
for matchups like Joel Embiid individually. So on the other hand, it's like they had to go get a guy because they didn't have anybody who would have been able to deal with him.
Yep, absolutely. All right, folks, that about wrap it up. He also did mention, because we brought up Malik Monk yesterday, Kyle, you brought it up about Sacramento looking to possibly trade Malik Monk. Devin Carter is also still in the trade market. He mentioned that Jake did that Malik Monk right now doesn't look like he is now in trade conversations. They are looking to potentially keep him. We'll see about Russell Westbrook. That was attached to Sacramento for a good portion of the offseason. Nothing has happened there as well. All right, that'll do it for us, folks, here on this Thursday. Kyle's off tomorrow, everybody. So it's Derek and I tomorrow.
4-day weekend for me, baby.
Yes, indeed. All right. So it's time for the world famous. It's the roll call.
Thank you, everybody, for being here today to hang out with us and see me out right before my vacation day.
See me out.
Thank you to my girl Nona, to the Court Jester 007, to Money Mar.
What up, Mar?
To Ramid, to Provolone John,
in there.
Eugene Ross, Jess.
What up, Gene?
Hello to all of you. Mr. Sandman with a couple super chats today. Thank you, Sandman.
You got a late super chat, Marcus Blackstock.
Thank you to Ed Wright. Oh, yeah. Marcus Blackstock said someone needs a castor oil smoothie for the hate cleanse. Wow. Tough but fair from Marcus.
Tough but fair.
Thank you, Marcus, for coming through. Thank you to Antoine. Thank you to D Flyers. Thank you to Smy Guy, Provolone John. Igavini, who's popping in from the classroom, I think, or maybe from work.
Nice
I can't tell. Thank you, Igavini. Stay out of trouble. Don't let people find out that you're using company time. Terrence Knights, thank you for being here. SB Cole, Mom, of course.
Yes.
Gotta thank Mom. Thank
Hey,
you to
Mom.
all our wonderful people who are here, as they are each and every day. Theo, I know, is in here as well. Thanks to all of you, even if I didn't get to you. Please, on the way out, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell icon so you get notifications each and every time we go live. And hit the thumbs up button to say thank you to Tyler.
Yes.
Producing the show today, Devon, Derek, and an unknown producer. We'll be back tomorrow at 3 p.m.
He's not
Don't
kidding.
be
We
late.
don't even really know yet.
Thank you to, of course, Rothman and visit your
Ford.
local
Goodbye.
Ford. See ya.
We all silly like the mayor.